my question. You said that recently you read Spawn 300.
Yeah.
So let's kind of get into this here, man. Like, what do you feel is, before we even get into Spawn as a character and the things that he's able to do, because I definitely want to get into that. But before we get into that, like, what do you feel is the impact and legacy of the series Spawn and what it did for Image Comics, independent comics, and everything like that? Because for me personally, I think you kind of got to make a separation. You got to make a separation, and it's hard. It's hard to make a separation between Spawn and everything that is going on with that character, that series of comics, the merchandising. It's hard to separate that from the creator, Todd McFarlane, and a lot of the business dealings and things that went on behind the scenes there. So I kind of want to get your take on that.
I'm going to have to agree with you on that. It is hard to separate the Spawn character without the creator and everything that comes with Todd McFarlane. I give Spawn and Image Comics credit and Todd McFarlane credit, because essentially what he did was made arguably the most popular indie superhero of all time, outside of Marvel and DC. I mean, let's be real. Who else even comes second, third, or fourth?
Right.
No, like, you can't. I mean, I can't even name any, because he was, with his inspiration of Marvel, he spearheaded a new era in comics, and he spearheaded a new era of creator control, which I respect Todd McFarlane for, because he knew it takes balls for someone to be on top of their craft and to basically be on the top of the world and basically get an easy, steady paycheck from not even an easy, steady, just nice fat check from Marvel, writing Spider-Man and drawing Spider-Man, to basically say, like, hey, I'm at the top of my craft. I'm pretty popular. I can go down in history right now. But I'm going to take that risk, start my own company, and make my own characters to carve out my own legacy. No, it's easy to do that when you're kind of down and out, when you're a beginner. But when you're already in there, you already have success and a steady paycheck coming towards you, to just drop all that and risk it all for something new, that takes a lot of credit. And for him to grow Image Comics into what it is today is, like, I can't even describe in words how big of a deal that is.
Because if there's no Image Comics, is there a such thing as The Walking Dead?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
I don't think there's any other indie publisher out there. Now, I'm still new to the game. I might be wrong to this, but I don't think there's anyone else that's really, I mean, you could say Valiant with Bloodshot, but yeah, no one else is really throwing it out there like that. No one else is providing, because Spawn was a big seller, a bestseller, and then you had Jim Lee on the team, and they had Rob Liefeld himself with Grifter and what was it, the Youngbloods? I mean, we won't talk about the quality of those stories or whatever.
We're not gonna talk about the Wildcats. The Wildcats.
Right.
Oh man.
But to his own credit, it was they sold well. They sold well, and they basically gave a voice to the voiceless for other indie creators who didn't want to or couldn't work for Marvel DC.
Oh
so
man.
That
oh man.
Yeah.
Batman and Grifter, the boy idiot.
And Rob Liefeld, shout out to Rob Liefeld for doing this thing, man. Despite all criticism of his art style and storytelling, I mean, it's a style. And I think one of the videos I watched of him said that if someone remembers you for something, at least you've done your job. You know, right. You're memorable. And then for positive and negative reasons, it's to be well known for something. I mean, the man said he was signing pouches, for God's sake, and he took it in stride. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, but yeah, further to further the conversation, right? So, like you were saying, what is the impact and legacy of Spawn?
I would say the impact of Spawn, outside of just being pretty much the number one indie non-Marvel, non-DC superhero of all time, currently speaking. I think in terms of him being like a black character, was it integral? Was it important? Did it play any kind of significant role for Al Simmons to be black? And was that an appeal to the character? For most people who don't see Spawn not being Spawn or uncovered, it's kind of a shock to see that, oh, it's a black guy. For those in the culture who those are really up to date in the comics, it wasn't a shock. They already knew. And I think it's kind of cool how Spawn has a little bit of an inspiration from the Prowler from the Spider-Man series. I always saw those guys kind of like cousins. In my head as a kid, it's like, oh, those guys are cousins. Prowler being black, Spider-Man related character. Todd McFarlane drew Spider-Man, now drawing a black character who looks like the Prowler. But I digress. So I think there is an appeal that Al Simmons is black. I think would Spawn be as cool? Would Spawn have hit hard with being a blonde-haired, blue-eyed Steve Rogers type? I think. This is tricky. This is tricky. The character design itself is so cool that I think that it might have sold. It still might have been a bestseller, but I think having him black and having Keith Davis voice him in the animated series to give him that kind of that quality to kind of send him over the top where he's firmly cemented. He might have been a flash in the pan, I think, as a Caucasian man, but I think having him be that black soldier gave him kind of that lasting impression that how many years later now we can still, you see that animated television series or you see Spawn, you can hear that voice. You can know, like, yeah, that's totally a badass dude behind the mask kicking ass, you know?
I mean, Spawn is a DLC character on Mortal Kombat, voiced by Keith David.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I hear the voice of Spawn. I'm not even gonna lie to you, bro. Like, I hear Keith David as Spawn, and I imagine that Spawn looks like one of my uncles, bro. You know what I'm saying?
Facts, because he does, yeah.
I imagine just the way that Spawn is talking to people, the way that, like, you read, I've never read a Spawn comic book, but I imagine that if you read a panel in a Spawn comic book, when you see the dialogue bubble, you hear it in the voice of Keith David.
That is a fact, man. I mean, come on. You have a black character like that with a black voice actor and it's an actual black person, a melanated person behind him. It just adds to the darkness. I mean, that's the whole thing about him.
Again, I feel like it really, it elevates the character in that sense. And I think if it was any other way, I don't think that the impact would have been the same way. Now,
no. And also, it gives him that edgy kind of taboo, you know, like, I guess it kind of gives him that edge of being like, you know, how black is kind of being marketed as almost like a rebellious spirit, like a rebellious. It's cool. It's edgy. I mean, they've always, from music industry, movie industry, we always kind of have that edgy kind of cutting edge kind of feel towards us in marketing. And I think that perfectly captured what Image Comics was going for, and they perfectly captured that spirit within that character and what they stood for moving forth as a company.
So yeah, even going, and I'm glad that we're getting into this here, because Spawn, right? That is a title.
Right.
Spawn is a title in the same way that 007 is a title. You kind of touched on it before that there was a little bit of controversy in that the next 007, who is supposed to have that title of 007, is a black female, right?
Right.
But the thing that I like about that is that it means 007 is a title. Anyone can be 007. I could be 007. I mean, well, I couldn't because I'm not British, but anyone could be Hellspawn. That's the reason why you have medieval Spawn or Dark Ages Spawn, or you see other characters within that universe take up that helm. it just so happens that the most popular version of Spawn happens to be Al Simmons.
Right. The first and the original. First impressions
Right.
are everything.
Same way that Jon Stewart, Kyle Rayner, and Hal Jordan could all be Green Lantern at various points in time. It just depends on who you view as the most popular character. Like for me and you, I'm not gonna assume anything, but for me and you, I would say the Green Lantern that we most identified with was the one that we seen on Justice League and Justice League United.
Right. Yeah, definitely for me growing up. You're absolutely correct, man.
So it's a title, but it just so happens that in this instance, the most popular version of Spawn is Al Simmons, right?
Right.
I don't know, like, how many times have you actually seen Al Simmons outside of being Spawn within any comic books that you've actually read?
Honestly, probably twice with the recent Spawn 300, and then as a kid, I think I glimpsed through a Spawn comic and saw it. Luckily, came across him being black in one of the comics. So it's far and few between. I'm not the most avid Spawn reader. It might be more than that, but the way he's marketed and the way he's showcased is mostly in full costume, in full Hell Spawn mode.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I mean, it's a little bit tricky, but like you said there, I think that if Spawn wasn't a black character, it wouldn't. I don't think that it would have been elevated. I don't think the character would have been elevated in the way that it is now, almost 25 years after that character was invented or came up with. You know what I mean? Created.
Right. You're saying he would have been stuck in the 90s, is what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because I mean, there was plenty of edgelord characters that came up during that time.
True.
And I mean, let's not get it twisted. Like, Spawn is definitely an edgelord, and hopefully that's the last time I end up having to use that term. But yeah.
Nah, man, I got a good feeling that that's gonna be you're gonna be using it plenty of times in the future in terms of future talks about Red Hood and a couple of the characters.
Shit.
Yeah. But no, let's not go. Let's not go there.
Even do that right now. But yeah, like, so again, the legacy and impact. You said that Spawn is one of the greatest, if not the greatest, independent comic book character to ever be created in terms of merchandising, popularity, and everything like that.
No doubt. No one even comes close. Can you think of anyone who would possibly come close to that?
No. And the other thing that I'm going to say is that even just keeping it to the animated series, a lot of the characters on the animated series were minorities. The character of Jason Wynn, you know what I'm saying? That motherfucker, man. Oh my God. Jason Wynn. The character of Jason Wynn was of Asian descent.
Yeah.
I believe that. Oh man. See, this is what Google is made for, but I'm not actually trying to look at my phone right now. But like,
let's see what we got.
If I'm not mistaken, there was a female character of Asian descent on the show that was helping Spawn out a lot. I don't want to mess up the name, so I'm not going to try to say what the character's name was.
Mm-hmm.
But again, she was also a minority. I mean, so there was a lot of things there aside from that being one of the first mature adult themed animated series to ever come out. There's a lot of things that are good to come out of the Spawn character that kind of balance out some of the things that you would like to stay within the 90s. I think one of the most iconic and eye-rolling Spawn comic book covers. I think there's a cover of a Spawn comic book somewhere where you see like the hands and symbols of like popular comic book characters behind a jail cell. And then you see Spawn holding the key. kind of like Todd McFarlane's way of implying that Spawn is more powerful or a greater character than all of them. I'm gonna pull that up and then send you a text of that cover, bro. Like, I don't know if you've seen that cover
I've
before,
I've
but
never heard of it, but I wouldn't doubt it. He'd have some. I mean, there's some pride. There's definitely pride in creating something like that and having the success of that character move forth. He's very protective of that character. I don't know
right,
how well Jamie Foxx is gonna do with the new
that shit
supposed
ain't coming out. That
movie.
ain't,
Who knows? I mean, never say never. I mean, they made an Ant-Man movie for God's sake, but
well,
yeah, man.
I mean that again. That's a different rabbit hole. But
Yeah.
all right, I got it right here. I'm sending you the text right now. So for anyone who's listening here, I'm gonna read this here. There's no copyrights here, right?
Nah, we straight.
Okay. So this is Spawn in a nutshell. This is some of the things that you could say are either good or bad about the character. So on this particular panel, there's a jail cell. You see the hand of Juggernaut. You see the hand of Batman with the, I'm not sure what you call them. And we're not even going to get into that. I'm not going to say fins because Batman doesn't have fins on his gloves. But you see the arm of the Hulk, Shazam, the Thing, Spider-Man looking like he's shooting out web. And this is what the dialogue on this particular panel says. They are just, they are noble, they are heroes, champions, watchmen, avengers, defenders, men of steel, women of tomorrow, gods of thunder, crusaders. They are justice, they are nobility, they are trapped, they are screaming. Behind me, the hooded men tremble beneath their hoods. They are weeping. Injustice, injustice. And then Spawn is telling them no, as if, no, I'm not letting you out of this cell. I am above you. I am more powerful than you. and this is from Spawn year 3. I'm sending you the picture of this right now.
Oh man, I gotta see it.
I mean, again, with shit like that is kind of what would turn you off to the character if you were the type of person that took this kind of thing too seriously.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, when you think about Spawn as a character, this is the guy that has a cape, supernatural abilities, chains, shoots guns. Does Spawn have a sword or does he have an axe?
I think he'd have both, but his axe is more signature.
He can't die. I'm not sure what type of pain he feels. Like, in terms of abilities and things that he can do, Spawn is a cheat code. Like,
Pretty much, yeah.
he's a cheat code. You wouldn't take that character seriously if I don't know, man. you wouldn't really take the character too seriously because I don't feel like he's meant to be taken seriously.
I mean, I think he can die and he can come back. I think he can lose his hell spawn and therefore just rot in eternal hell. I think the dilemma with Spawn, I think, is, I guess, more protecting people who are alive rather than protecting himself and avenging those who need to be avenged in his eyes. I think that's where the real tension relies on with Spawn, because like I said, like you said, I think there's kind of a cheat code aspect to him, like a game genie to him, where he can just kind of pull shit out of his ass with abilities and win battles.
Like, and my bad, dog. Like, I actually sent you the text I just sent you with the screenshot is in Spanish.
Yeah, it's all good. I got you though.
But I mean,
understand
you could look at the picture, and I mean that's a dope. Like, that's actually like a fire panel that they drew there. But at the same time, it's like, come on, man. Like, what are we actually doing here? Like, I mean, how many independent characters actually got a run with Batman? There's a Spawn versus Batman line of comic books that were out. Like, that has to count for something.
Right.
You know what I mean?
On the other hand, I can kind of view this. He was big on on writers' rights, creators' rights.
Oh yeah.
So on one hand, I can kind of see this maybe being sort of a commentary on Marvel and DC, basically ripping off the guys who created the characters taking all the money for themselves, and maybe Spawn is in this photo or this panel. Maybe Spawn is a little bit more of a representative of those statements or feelings toward these creators, because Venom is his baby, essentially, like Spawn. But there's no way he can basically take Venom and put him Spawn comic. He can't do that.
Right.
These characters are all locked up. No creator owns any rights to them. I mean, Superman. Superman is like they DC. One of the biggest ripoffs of all time in American history is with the Superman creators towards DC Comics. I think they reached a settlement in the 70s, and still, even then, it's not even a fraction of what they're owed for the creation of that guy, that character.
Right.
So I think this is a little bit meta. This might be a little bit of a meta commentary on how Marvel and DC just holds these characters and squeeze them for what they're worth, and no one can really claim the rights of touching these guys. And that's one of the reasons why Todd McFarlane made Image Comics, was to basically make sure that his work from now on would be in his control and his hands, and that no one else. Yeah.
That's a dope take on that, man, because I never would have thought about that.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think, and that Spawn being on the outside with the keys is kind of like, yo, I could have been you, but here I am on the outside. You know what I mean? Like, I'm free. Right. Y'all trapped up. Y'all at Akon right now. You know?
Damn, bro.
I mean, locked up and shit.
See, that actually, that gives a little bit of added context to all of that. You know what I'm saying? Behind their hoods, they are weeping.
Right.
Damn.
Yeah.
That definitely gives some added context, because there are, like, not to get too far off topic, but like with Batman, for example, right? Mm-hmm. There's definitely a separation between how Frank Miller writes Batman and how another writer will write Batman. Mm-hmm. Batman Year One and the whole Dark Knight Returns series are considered different versions of that character than what anybody else did with it. So, wow, that's that's actually a pretty dope take on all of that. So, overall, for Spawn, do you feel like, in terms of him being a black character and in terms of him being one that was independent, do you think that the amount of mileage that Todd McFarlane actually was able to get out of that character was exceeded expectations, is what I'll say? And we ain't even going to get into all of the lawsuits and the behind the scenes shit. We ain't even going to get into we ain't even going to get into the disputes with Frank Miller and Neil Gaiman and you know what I'm saying, one of Angela becoming a character within Marvel Universe and becoming Thor's long lost sister. We ain't even gonna get into all of that, right? Not today, right?
Right. Not today. Not how arguably Image Comics was almost the downfall of comics in the 90s. But yeah, that's a whole nother discussion. But I think definitely he got some extra mileage, more than extra mileage. He definitely, Todd McFarlane's a pretty confident guy. I'm pretty sure he was pretty confident in his abilities and how to run. Maybe not how to run a business, but to leave an impact. Mm-hmm. But I think it's very far-fetched to just be like, yeah, I'm going to create the most successful, independent, and the most well-known indie superhero character of all time from this date forward until someone else could possibly top it. I don't think, like, that's your goal, but I don't think there's that feeling of like, yeah, it's like, you already know. A lot of these characters, no one really knew when they made them of the impact they would leave on the world and the impressions they would make on people. Mm-hmm. You kind of just create them and you get a feel for them, but you don't know the impact that it makes. And a lot of, obviously the Superman creators didn't know because they sold his ass to DC for pennies on the dollar. Obviously, Spider-Man, Stan Lee and them didn't think of it because he was just featured in Amazing Fantasy 15. If they knew how big of a character he was, why would he be in a book like that? He'd start off solo, you know? I mean, Spider-Man didn't even almost came to be. They thought he was too young. They thought he should have been psychic. All this and that and the third. There's a lot of characters out there who are not intentioned. There's a lot of characters who Marvel and DC think people want. No one wants that shit.
Oh man.
So,
Okay, such
yeah.
as.
Oh jeez, Marvel and DC for the past. Oh, okay, let's go with the Inhumans, man. They're not they're not new. I understand they're not new, but Marvel pushing the Inhumans on us with Black Bolt and Medusa and them, like we're gonna treat them like they're Cyclops and Jean Grey. That's a no-no. It's just not gonna fly.
Those are definitely shoes that don't fit.